Here are these sets of fixings from the other day, all nicely packaged up in their little bubble wrap things. And very exciting, the other stuff has started to arrive. Look at that. The plumbing fittings arrived this morning. It's brilliant, this company in Glasgow. So I've got Munson rings, or pipe rings, whatever you want to call them. Proper brass, no cheating, I'll have you know. These little fittings that I use as the on and off button, because I've also, what arrived, a good seller on eBay. It shows you, because this company do sell these radiator bleed valves, but they're much more expensive, and I found one supplier on eBay that sells them at a really reasonable price, I think 50p each or something. Now I could have made something to replace these out of plastic or something, but you just can't beat brass. It's such a beautiful material. And if I drill out the end of one of these fittings, this just fits into it and gives it a really nice appearance. Looks like it's proper mechanical thing rather than an electronic switch. Now I've got, what are they? Oh, these are the ones that I didn't have an example of. You can see them through the plastic there. Brilliant. All end feed, which means they don't have a little solder ring inside. They're just simple plain copper. And the sliding bits that hold the motor, more slightly smaller Munson rings and even smaller Munson rings. I think it's 15mm, 22mm, and the other ones were 28mm. The reducers that take the 15mm copper pipe down to 8mm rubber, of which this is a sample. And the other bits, these bits are for the clarion door horn. That's what I called it, the clarion door horn, because I've nearly run out of them, so I'm just starting to stockpile bits ready to make some more of those up. And I've remembered I'd just forgotten to mention, as always, loads of amazing products available on my website and at Etsy, from decorative steampunk gauges to adorn your inventions to fabulous steampunk style picture frame machines, all 3D. Apologies for the reflections, you can always add your own picture, you don't need Queen Victoria, to the beautiful chronograph. How lovely. And these are all available from my online shop at steamhead.co.uk, or alternatively at Etsy, Steamhead Inventions. Fabulous, thank you. On with the show. Yesterday also made up loads of these out of those tea lights, candle light things. Start off with two little acrylic cutout bits and the flickering LED and the rubber silicone flame shape put on top, and then solder the wires on, colour coded wires, heat shrink sleeve the connections so they can't short circuit, and then glue this bit on. Unfortunately I've run out of some of this 15mm acrylic tube, so I've ordered some more. Having done that, my biggest problem is not to feel that I have loads and loads to do. I was brought up being told regularly each day that if I got up at 8 o'clock I'd probably wasted the best hours of the day. So my success criteria and what makes me happiest is just to have an endless load of stuff to do, to feel when I go to bed that I've achieved things. Relaxing is not very easy for me to do. So I then found I had some 28mm copper, cut it into the 10 lengths that I needed, and the 15mm copper, cut that into it and deburred all the ends with my lovely deburring tool, and even these small pieces of copper. So I got all the copper done, very satisfying, following the instructions that I wrote out, and every time I remember something else I make a note of it. So drill out to 9.5mm, stick on the end a bit loose, deburr, all the rest of it. So really these are sort of like kit pre-instructions. In fact, in some ways they're more complicated than actually assembling the kit. Backfired a little bit. The idea was to create a very reasonably priced product, and it is very reasonably priced considering what goes into it, but I hadn't really quite thought how much effort it does take to put the kits together. These are the little turned oak knobs, the control knobs, and I've drilled them all out to 4.1mm to allow a 4mm M4 thread to allow them to rotate easily on that. A couple of them I didn't have, or I'd cut off, I didn't have the right sort. Only two though, so rather than ordering a whole load more that are just going to sit in a box somewhere, I've glued on some dowel and turned it down on the lathe. And then last night, once it was cold and all the windows were shut, just in case I upset anyone with a stink, I cut out the gears. I've got, this one was one I sprayed earlier. That's the one that holds the bearing. This is, oh, there's another one that holds the bearing, 10 of each. Here's the one that holds the oak knob. That basically, can he do it single-handedly? Can he do it single-handedly? Yes, he can. The oak knob pushes into here. This will be cut down more, and then the little holes around this gear are where you can put the glue in to make it stick properly. So that's good. Had to make sure the holes are the right size. And then the smallest ones, these ones, and these gears are the ones that push onto the clock movement with two little holes. In fact, they're triangular holes that don't need tapping, and you can put an M2 screw in straight away that holds the hand on. Cunning plan. Oh, there's the lovely new jar of Jacobean dark oak beeswax Colron, which for most of 2 days doing searches on the internet seemed to be as rare as hen's teeth. And then the next day looked it up, found another company that had it, and loads in stock and a really good price. I have been using this ply to make the enclosures from. It's very reasonably priced. I've been very impressed with how flat and stable it's been, but the only downside is it's not very consistent, the manufacturing. So you set up the laser to some power setting that you've established works, it then cuts everything out, and then you find that it's whizzed through some and sort of got charcoal along the edge, or other bits it hasn't cut through, and then you have to try and use a scalpel, and it's a pain in the backside. But that is because it is not made necessarily for laser cutting. So what I've done this time to try and alleviate that, walk this way past the carpet of invisibility and into the another bit of carpet of invisibility, I've ordered a load of this plywood, which is laser cutting ply. Be zoomed out, yeah. It's 3mm again, because that's what the design dictates, and it smells lovely. I think it's beech or something. It smells absolutely fabulous. Comes from properly managed sources and things like that, but all the companies that sell this say be aware it warps, and you can see this first bit that really is warped badly, and it says leave them in wherever you're going to cut them for a few days to acclimatise. That's not so badly warped. What I'm hoping, sincerely hoping, is because I'm going to cut this into lots of little bits, if I can clamp it flat on the laser to cut it, cutting into lots of little bits, each bit won't notice that there's a slight warp. I mean, it is what it is basically. All the suppliers of it say it does warp. But the good things are, it's very consistent, so once you set the power on the laser to the right setting, you know it's going to cut everything out perfectly. And apparently it doesn't leave soot on the sides. It cuts really cleanly, so you get clear wood on the sides. Why it warps, I don't know. Why this does and the other doesn't, I don't know, because again it's made up of 3 layers, 3 veneers, 2 thin ones on the outside facing, running vertically on this, and a thicker layer in the middle running horizontal on this. So strange. Oh well, we'll see how it goes. So like I said, I glued on a piece of dowel, which I then turned down on the lathe, and to get the knobs the same height, obviously there's this difference here. So what I'm going to do is to use the sheet of warped new laser cutting ply to see if I can cut out a 3mm thick thing. The diameter of that, which is, I can hardly see it because all the glue on the dial, never mind, it's been with me a long time. This is actually on autofocus. Is it actually able to focus? Perhaps I'm zooming into, no I'm not, I don't know, perhaps I need to lift it up a bit. Right, try that then, it all looked a bit blurry. So, 24.8 I would guess, 24.8, and that hole in the middle is 15. Right, because my brain is a muscle and I've been exercising it far too much recently, I think I'm going to put, because I can't even remember what, just 15. Right, diameter 15 in the middle, and the outside is 24.8. Right, well, I need a memoir. I'm going to put that into 2D design, draw it out, and then have a go at cutting it. Exciting. Another top tip from the people who taught you how to glue your fingers together with super glue and separate them with a scalpel. Now here's the drawing, there's the outer limit and the inner limit for that wooden washer that I was going to make. Now the laser cutter, the thickness of the cut is 1/4 millimeter, so you can use maths to take it all the way, but I find that's too much effort. So it's got this contour tool, and all CAD software has this, so if you set that to 0.125, which is half the thickness of the cut, a graphical, I can then say, okay, make the outer one bigger and the inner one smaller. And then with this other lovely tool, which is the delete part of the line, I can then delete that, Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. That should cut to the right size. Let's see. I'll take this warped bit of ply down into the bed of the machine, just where it hinged up with some bits of masking tape. Yeah, it's not too bad, I suppose, because you have to focus it so accurately. If it's even a couple of mil out, it will not cut properly. Let me just show what is going on here. Right, let's move this somewhere roughly to where I'm going to cut it. Then I press over here on the top secret keypad Z-axis operate, and then what I've got to do, I've now completely run out of hands, hang on a minute, that's better. Now what I've got to do is to use this little jig thing. It's got what it says on the back ruler, 78 millimeters. That point has got to be away from the surface of the work. So, without getting my arm in the way, I'm going to then go, you can see the bed of the machine moves down until that's good enough for me. Right, so that's now set, so I can move this back now to wherever I want to start cutting. That's already peeled up a bit, put some more tape on there or something. The next thing to do is to consult the instructions, so let's have a look. This is an HBC laser. It says down here, oh, birch ply, look, here we are. 3mm birch ply. And it says, through the coffee stains and filth, I don't know what all this filth is, it's very strange. Graving, cutting, here we are, cutting guide. 5 to 8mm a second, and power 40. 40 was the recommended maximum that the company, HBC Laser, suggested. Reading between the lines and having spoken to other people, I think if you don't take it above 40% power, the laser tube lasts a lot longer, and so do the optics, the mirrors, the lenses, all the rest of it. So I'm just sticking that. It means that it takes longer to cut, but if the laser cutter lasts longer without needing new tubes, lenses and mirrors, then fine, that's okay. Right, let's glue them on then. Wood, super glue, I hear you cry. Surely super glue doesn't work. Well, it doesn't in the conventional sense, but I'll try and get this on camera, because the first lot has a tendency to soak in, which is fine. PVA does that, that's why it sticks so well. So I'm going to put a bit on that bit, and then I'm going to put a bit on this bit, and this is end grain, so where I glued the dowel on, you can see that I pre-primed it, I don't know, something or other. So that's okay, and I'll just let that soak in a little bit, and if that dries, that's absolutely fine. This ply is not very absorbent, not really anything has gone in there, so, because I don't want it squirting out around the edge, because it could stop the wax thing. I'm just going to take a little bit off on my finger and stick that to that, and now that's stuck to that. Right, twist it a little bit, make sure. I think that's going to be absolutely fine. It sticks like the proverbial to the shovel, and just to make absolutely sure, any excuse to use a bit more super glue, I'll just put a little bit here and now, and capillary action can do the rest. Oh well, that's not going anywhere. I did wonder yesterday when I stuck the doweling on, because I couldn't, it was just a butt joint, because I haven't got a drill that was 16mm diameter with a flat bottom. So I needed just to stick it on. I stuck it together on the lathe to guide it together so it was in the middle, but it worked perfectly. Glued them together, clamped them in a vise, and then took the dog for a walk. By the time I got back, it was set absolutely solid. I feel some painting of gears coming on. That's something I can do. Let's move these hideous, useless, nasty failures of Chinese rip-offs of the proper ones out the way. Not that I've got anything against them, other than the fact they're slightly bent as well and they don't work, even with the cunning plan from the other day, which should have worked but doesn't. They are absolutely useless, other than of course for their intended use, which is to make football games and sporting events just that little bit more miserable. I will consign them to a storage facility, possibly for a rainy day, although I can't think why I would ever need them. Oh, and this is my lovely little spray booth. I realised after trying spraying things all over the place that when I sprayed them over in this part of the room, they came out perfectly, not a speck of dust anywhere. I thought, why is that? Then slowly the brain kicked into action and remembered that I've got one of these filters. They're dust filters, so that you have them running all the time if you're doing dusty work, and they just cycle the air from the workshop through, take all the dust out, and out the back they blow pure dust-free air. So that's what I realised it was. So I built a sort of cardboard trunking shaped thing to direct the lovely clean air down here, and then bought 2 cheap roller blinds, so it would feasibly be possible to remove this if I need to, and that's it. And then to get rid of those nasty stinky smells of the paint, I built this box trunking thing at the back, and underneath all the filth and stuff, there's one of these centrifugal blowers, and that just takes a little bit of the air outside, and it does work extremely well. Prior to adding the extractor pump down there to this system, I would find everything in the workshop coated with a very thin and fine and delicate and beautiful layer of brass paint, if I'd been using brass, which is a little bit annoying and also probably not very good for my lungs. So I'll get everything arranged and have a quick spray. As I've said many times, hoover, hoover, hoover before you paint. Even the base that you're painting on, even if it seems clean, just the spray can then lift up little bits, little particles. What I'm going to do now, as always, not worrying about the back of them, just going to paint the bit you're going to see. So I'm going to really thoroughly hoover off any dust. Defacing the country's currency, I hear a cry. Well, the thing is, because this centre bit is where the oak knob's going to glue on, I don't want paint, because as I've said numerous times before, paint isn't very strong. If you're going to glue onto it, chances are it'll just come off without that much force. So I'm just using these 1p pieces as masks. They're heavy enough not to be blown away by the spray, and I like to see it, rather than destroying or defacing the currency, I'm actually adding value to it, because they now look like they're made of gold. Fantastic! Here's a complicated way of trying to cut these knobs down. Because my chuck jaws are not deep enough, they just miss this outer one, so it's very difficult to line it up. Whereas I've got this spinning bearing head thing that I can't remember what they're called, I'll look it up later. So that would support it, but then as I bring in the parting off tool, I can just see it suddenly snapping, catching, flying off, because this isn't adequately supported. So I think I'm going to go for the simpler option. For what they are, these Rexon tools are very good. Very impressed with them, considering how much they cost and how well they've lasted. But you pay for what you get. I need this blade on the bandsaw to be absolutely perpendicular, and after much struggling I have achieved it. But obviously it won't have a nice beautiful cast iron bed for the machine. It's got a cast alloy aluminium thing, and you've got all these weird, well, not weird and wonderful, but useful adjusting things underneath. But there's so much flexibility in it, as you can see. You know, it's got the webbing underneath to give it some more rigidity, but you just can't beat cast iron. I have though managed to wiggle it and get it vertical and tighten everything. And I'm going to use the wonderful V-block, multi-purpose, 1,000 uses around the home, to somehow trim these knobs down. These V-blocks came with these very handy U-clamps that locate in these slots on either side, and then you can grip things on them. So I found something handy, which happens to be a socket, to fix on here, and then if I lie the knob on here, luckily these two bits are the same diameter, so I know if it's in this V it is going to be perfectly 90 degrees this way, that way, and all the other ways. Then if I rest this up against the thing of the machine, I've not got any memory of any names and words today, hold that in place, which I should be able to, slide that through, that should, because the distance between there and is 2mm for the thickness of the gear, that should work. I say should. I haven't got any more gears at all. I haven't got any more knobs at all, so I really do hope this does work. Let's give it a go. Typical here, isn't it? Because there's one little bit of grit or fluff stuck in there, which would yeah, you pay for what you get, like I was saying. Such a slight difference here, but it's enough for something to catch on that. It's so annoying. Second coat. Thank you very much for watching, and remember the steamhead.co.uk or Etsy Steamhead Inventions. Hope to see you next time.